I'd like to call to order the November 2nd, 2015 Vallecitos Water District regular board meeting, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and if you would, Director Hernandez.
Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much.
And if you ready, roll call, Diane.
Director Ellisar?
Here.
Director Hernandez?
Here.
Director Martin?
Here.
Director Snell?
Here.
Director Evans?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Was there any items to be pulled? Oh, wait, we have to adopt the agenda for this regular meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. And the second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Any abstentions? Passes unanimously. And now we will go on to oral communications. Does anyone in our vast audience have anything to comment on today? Okay, thank you very much. If you think of it, let me know later.
You guys must have reached out to Mike. I knew that was gonna work.
You know,
They did what?
They must have reached out to Mike. Remember we talked about that last time?
we can't
Oh.
take credit.
Oh, no.
I say we can't take credit, Mike, sorry.
Call the hospitals.
As a minor
You just
procedure.
pressed- I thought I actually solved the problem.
Thank you.
Apparently
I
not.
so appreciate that. Wow, okay, so we'll move on to the consent calendar, and if there's no items to be pulled for discussion, do we have a motion in a second?
Move to approve.
Thank you,
Second.
thank you. All those in favor, it's been moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Abstentions? Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Now we'll move on to action items. It will be the El Nino presentation by Ed. And I'm sure as quickly as the meeting's going, it will be a very short presentation.
It won't be very long.
I actually hope it's okay.
No.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. I believe it was Director Snella that requested the full presentation. This is a kind of excerpt from a presentation I gave to operations staff a few months ago. We've been discussing and actually preparing for El Nino since August. So even though it's still hot, basically on fire, we were talking about this. So I'll kind of gloss over the first few slides. I'm sure you've seen a lot about El Nino in the press, online, social media. But giving it to the operations staff, I was discussing what is it, what can we do to prepare for it. NOAA describes El Nino as disruption in the ocean atmosphere system in the tropical Pacific, having important consequences for weather and climate around the globe. Right now, they're still saying 95% chance of the El Nino effect occurring from now, November, all the way through March or maybe even April in the spring. El Nino, though, doesn't mean that we're gonna get a lot of rainfall. It just means that the ocean temperatures are warmer than normal. So we've all seen these pictures of the warmer water temperatures through the Pacific Ocean. And the big difference from 97 to 2015 that I was talking with operations staff and that NOAA's also talking about is in 2015 you have this area of extremely warm water along the coast of California and of the Pacific Northwest. That was not there in 97, and Jerome Janis and I attended a County of Office of Emergency Services meeting a few weeks ago, and one of the head honchos from NOAA was talking about this. What El Nino does, it brings our storm track down into Southern California instead of Northern California. The storms, they're saying there's gonna be probably more of them, but the big difference in those storms is this warm water blob that's been sitting off our coast and causing some havoc with fishing and sharks and all that kind of stuff. What they're saying is we'll have a lot more storms, but this warm water is gonna mean there's gonna be a lot more moisture in the atmosphere. It's gonna add a lot more rain, heavier rain to the storms that we're gonna be getting. So this could potentially be even a bigger Godzilla El Nino than 97.
May I ask, has this blob ever been seen before in the history of weather? It's not only different, it's a new.
It's new. They've seen smaller ones, but nothing this size, and it's off of Alaska as well. And one of the other things that we we saw during the last 4 or 5 years was that they called it the ridiculously resilient ridge of high pressure. And that's why our last 4 springs have been very dry, even though there was mild to moderate El Nino events occurring. That was blocking any of the storms from coming in. Well, that resilient ridge is gone. And that's why we're starting to see the storms come into California.
Christine, yes, Director Martin.
Would I also be correct, though, in assuming that some of this technology is relatively new? So 20 or 30 years ago, we didn't know if there was a blob off the coast or not.
They've actually had the buoys out there for quite a while. 20 or 30 years ago, no, but in the last 10 to 15 years, they've certainly known about it.
I'll actually be trying to explain atmospheric rivers.
That was my next question, so I'll wait.
Yeah, I'm not the PhD who did it, but I'm gonna try to interpret what he showed you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So part of what NOAA has been forecasting for a few months now, October through December of this year, if you look at the part of California that we're in, we're going to have slightly above normal temperatures now through December. And that's going to equate to slightly above average rainfall now through December. That's not the real problem, but if you look at the northern part of California, it's lower than average rainfall and higher than average temperatures now through December, and it gets worse January through March. So we're going to see average temperatures, they're predicting again, January through March, but much warmer temperatures in the Pacific Northwest, and that's where our snowpack is needed. So if it's too warm for snow, and we get a lot of rain up there, that's not going to help us for this drought. And then the forecast for the rain, January through March, is about 50% above average for where we're at in Southern California, but it lessens in degree as we go further north. So a little bit more than normal in most of Northern California, but the top end where a lot of our snowpack is average. So most of this presentation I wanted to talk about what are we doing at Vallecitos to prepare for it. It's not all just operations. Engineering department has been involved. We have a sewer model that's already complete. Looking at that, it shows us where the greatest impacts will be due to infiltration into our sewer system during a heavy rain event. Operationally speaking, and Dennis has been here for all of the fun events where we've had spills because of these massive rain events. We know where those areas are at, and actually most of them over the years have been engineered out. Some of the more critical sites that we had inflow of water, we moved those manholes out of the creek area, and the ones that are still in some sensitive areas, they're sealed up tight. So those are some of the things that we've done for the sewer system. Collections department, they're done with their inspections. We inspect all these areas quarterly anyway, but I asked them to do an even more thorough inspection, make sure all the seals are intact. So we're good to go on the collection system. I mentioned previous wet years where we've had problems. Well, beyond the sewer system, we've had some areas where we've had mudslides. A few years back, I think it was in 2010, in San Luis Hills, we had a hillside come down and inundate our pump station. We had a lot of damage to the fence and some parts of the pump station. We are actually working with the property owners out there in San Luis Hills, and they're going to help us mitigate some of that area with some, they're planting some ryegrass and putting out some wattles, that kind of stuff. And then we're beefing up our area as well.
I'm curious about the fire that was around South Lake.
We've been looking at that hill. We've had a few rains since the fire. There is a little bit of erosion going on. It's not too bad. We are going to be placing, I'm not sure if you guys know what wattles are, the straw that's inside the kind of round mesh. We're placing some of those up on the hill. There is growth already. The fire's back in May of 2014. We already have vegetation that has grown back. And then we're placing additional sandbags along our fence line, so if the hill does come down, we'll try and divert as much as we can away from the pump station. The lake itself is fine.
Thank you.
We're looking at all district facilities, buildings as well, checking the roofs to make sure that we're doing what we can to prepare for heavy rains. Stocking up on sandbags, wattles, other erosion control supplies. The warehouse now, we have right now already 3 pallets of sandbags and 3 pallets of rock bags and tons of the wattles, and we're placing them where we need them, but we have those as backup supplies.
Martin?
A quick question on the wattles, that's always been of interest to me, because I see them used, and I see they're very good at what they do. They come in a long length, pre-done, we don't do anything, we just unroll it
Pretty much.
off a flatbed truck?
Yeah, they're really light, so it's strong, so, we just have, usually we throw them back on our small dumps.
Right.
It's like a flatbed truck size. We have pumps and generators, being serviced and tested. Minimum levels for the district's fuel station, and this is something that we already knew from, previous emergencies. We have a 10,000-gallon unleaded fuel tank and a 10,000-gallon diesel tank that's out there as part of our fueling station. The lowest we allow that to get down on both of them is 3,000 gallons. And going back through historical records, we've determined even one of our heavy use months, where we do have some odd things going on, we'll burn through about 2,000 gallons in a month of both diesel and unleaded. So even if we were all the way down at our low level before we called for a fuel truck to come out, we would have a month's supply with 1,000 gallons of both in reserve. So we're looking really good for fuel. All of our emergency action plans have recently been reviewed and updated. As you know, we have our own emergency operating center, which we just mentioned the fires back in May of 2014. We pretty much look at everything on a quarterly basis, not just our plans and our equipment. We have things like snacks, stuff like that. MREs, meals ready to eat, military rations. We're actually looking at maybe changing that to something more palatable if you've ever eaten an MRE. So,
These are the new ones. They're tolerable.
Have you had one,
Got an
Jim?
old sea ration can you probably would have
Oh.
I've
taken.
eaten, I had sea rations a lot as a child.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of calories.
Is there any one area that is like a red flag vulnerable area that we need to watch very carefully? Because something weird might happen and then we have all kinds of chaos.
Probably the biggest area that we had problems with a few years ago, besides the pump station I mentioned, was our Twin Oaks reservoirs. But the 40 million gallon reservoir had only been completed for a couple of years. There wasn't a lot of vegetation on that side. It's a very steep slope. So we did have some sliding there, which we repaired. We put down jute, additional planting on that, and wattles and all kinds of stuff. We just looked at that again yesterday with Russell, our expert landscaper, and it's in great shape.
Good.
So we are going to put a few more things in place just to be sure. But that was our biggest concern and probably the area we had the most amount of movement of soil.
Director Sinella.
How about Mar Reservoir? Has that ever gone over the dam?
Not to my knowledge.
No, Mar Reservoir doesn't allow any surface inflow.
I'm sorry? Dennis?
Mar Reservoir does not allow any surface inflow except for rainfall. So the hills all the way around it, we actually capture it in runoff ditches, and we take it around the reservoir. So the only way
You
water
don't
gets in.
think there would be, if we have this major rain event, you don't?
No,
think
we just
there'd
don't
ever
pump
be
to it.
enough?
We just send it to the ocean, we don't pump to it.
And we've actually pulled it down somewhat. We've allowed Carlsbad Lane to pull it down, so we kept it very full during the summer months, so that if they were pulling very hard on us, there was plenty of storage in there. We've allowed it to come down a few feet, so there is that room just in case.
Excuse me, go ahead.
Likewise with South Lake, if that water goes over the spillway,
We have a drain.
we have drain.
Yeah,
we can
by order of the state, we're not allowed to go above a certain level, which is below the spillway.
Oh,
And so we have an 18-inch valve that since I've been here, I think we've only had to open it about 4 or 5 times.
Yeah, March Miracle.
yeah,
we definitely
and
had
so
to-
when we open it, then it goes just down the creek door and out to
Right down
the
the
It goes to
ocean. and we
Discovery
can-
Lake and then.
Yeah, we can open it up
down from there.
It floods.
soon
yeah.
enough and taking out Discovery.
Yeah, the operators maintain a close watch on where.
Okay.
Director, Mr. Lamb.
Yeah, the only other one, Director Nance, that we had real concerns in the past with, the board may recall, we replaced the sewer that went across San Marcos Creek at Discovery. That was where we did have the spill back in 2005 during the bad rains.
Mhm.
That's the one that we took, we completely realigned it, took it into the lake and got our pipes out of the creek. That was our biggest risk, so that one's gone.
And just out of curiosity, if we had a big mudslide or something, who is called in to help besides us?
Depends on where it's at. The city of San Marcos, of course, is gonna help us in where it's in there, because it's gonna be affecting their roads. Lake San Marcos area and the unincorporated parts of the county, that's gonna be the county coming in. Part of that county emergency services meeting we had, there was a presenter from the county, and they have a yard right here in San Marcos, so they have equipment right
Oh,
here. So, yeah, they'll be on the ball.
Dr. Hernandez.
Not being familiar with the outside area of emergency plans, are there contractors standing, identified, so that if somebody needs to be called, they can pick up a phone as opposed to worrying about who to call in an emergency operation?
As part of our EOC center, we do have emergency contacts, different contractors, but I'm gonna be discussing part of what we have locally here between the agencies as well.
Director Martin.
Good question. Do you feel, and I'm just curious, that in case of a national emergency, I'm not talking about El Nino, major earthquake, buildings leveled, do you think a month's supply is all they need of fuel, food, water?
That month's supply of the fuel would be worst-case scenario at our highest level of usage. If we ran into something like that, we'd obviously minimize staff going out and doing their normal, everyday stuff. It would be, the fuel would be directed towards emergency repairs only at that point. But we would most likely, under normal circumstances, we would have 2 to 3 months supply of fuel. Our O&M staff are trained and prepared for responding to large-scale disaster events such as the severe flooding, and that includes the collections staff. We have all the equipment, it's already tested. We have a spill response trailer. We can do pump arounds during that. They're usually the ones that are most affected. Water operations, not so much during this. We just kind of shut things down and hope our mains don't get washed out. But sewer collections, they're the ones that are most impacted. And just mentioning this, we have the Water Agency Emergency Collaborative, which Vallecitos is part of. Jerome Janis and myself attend those meetings. And then the district is also a member of CalWARN, California Water Agency Response Network, and there's several others that are within the state and the county. And those are a group of member agencies that we share how much equipment we have, how much potential employees we could share with another agency. These things have been in place for a long time. One of the ones that just happened recently, about a year and a half ago, Napa had some severe earthquakes up there. They had 175 main breaks. Obviously, their staff could not handle that. They were not a member of CalWARN. CalWARN contacted them and said, if you want to sign the document right now.
On our way.
And so they sent, and so the member agencies that were around them sent repair crews, and they didn't get all 175 in 1 week, but they repaired 125 main line breaks in 1 week. Wow. And that was impressive. So this is the type of member agency cooperation that we have throughout the state and here locally. North County agencies, we meet every other month and we discuss these things, and we've helped each other out during multiple emergencies. So obviously on a huge Katrina type event, it's going to be more than one agency's impacted, but we have the entire state that we're a part of. So will it be enough? As with any emergency, best we do is prepare for what we might think happened. The local county and state agencies have emergency plans in place for Katrina-type events, which I just talked about. And Vallecitos has actually sent a couple of us through some pretty intensive training to be at the incident manager level to handle Katrina and 9/11 type events. Jerome Janis is one, and I'm the other. James Compel is partway through the training. So we do have the ability to handle these things locally with ourselves, but something that big of an event, we're going to be dealing with local, county, state, even federal agencies at that point.
No, I'm sorry.
And as always, we'll continue to train, prepare for all emergencies that impact our services and our customers. So that guy was the only smart one in town. So any questions?
Are there any questions for him, gentlemen?
Thank you.
Well,
Thanks,
I
Ed.
would like to say that was very informative. Thank you, Director Sinella, for suggesting it. It was an excellent presentation. And once again, I think it impresses me with how much this district is taken care of without the public being aware of, and how really ready we are, and I know we don't know what's coming with this new adventure in front of us with the newest El Nino, but I'm very impressed, and thank you. And it's nice to know we have the incident manager level here. That was very proactive thought, and I feel really good about that. Yes, Director Ellicott.
You mentioned the public not necessarily knowing that, but maybe it'd be good to get that out in a newsletter or something that, I don't know if you've already.
Yeah, I think Chris is actually working towards that. We'll make sure it is done.
I was gonna say the same thing.
Same thing.
Thanks, Ed.
That is good. Thank you very much.
Maybe also with that newsletter, one thing I learned from this presentation today was the Cal Warren Network. That's pretty interesting. I think a lot of our, because you hear about that with CAL FIRE and the other fire agencies, when there's a fire in Northern California, they all mobilize up there and take care of it, and then they go back to their home bases. But I didn't know that there was something similar for the water agencies, so that was neat.
Yeah, we have one through Encina and through the Water Authority as well.
So there's,
So it sort of starts at the local level, like they've met with San Marcos already. Okay, if we have to call you, who do we call?
Yeah.
So we know, and it goes from local to state to federal.
I think
So
that's a great.
we'll make sure we roll that in.
Let the public know.
Yeah.
Super. Yes,
Was-
Dr. Ellicott, Doctor, Director.
I have a daughter that's a,
Okay. Talking to her.
the ICS trainings at the ICS 200, 400.
100, 200, 100, 200, 300, 700, and 800.
800, 900?
So what level have you been through here? Oh, yeah, okay.
I was going through it, but they stopped me. They didn't want me out there.
It is pretty intense. I've been through the ICS 400, and it's, yeah, it was
Yeah, I think
pretty
the
good
only-
training.
Only two, 500 and 600, I've not gone through because those are specific if you're just gonna do operations or just logistics. The 1 through 400 and 6, 7, 8, 7, those are all where you're just gonna be involved as a manager and be able to handle all of it.
And then to Director Martin's question on a national, if it's a major earthquake, actually James and I think Rob have also gone to the certification training to be able to enter and evaluate structures as engineers. So they're certified to go in and do that as well. Because otherwise, we can't go into a pump station after an earthquake, major, without it being certified safely. So we have that on staff as well.
Good forethought. Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks, Ed.
That's great. All right, moving on, we move to 2.2 and action item, the Aqua election of officers. Dennis?
Yes, the board may recall recently they supported the nomination package of Aqua. At the annual conference coming up, they do have the nominations for a couple of items with respect to the officers as well as policy and the procedures. What we're after before is that the district does have to cast its vote during the conference. Right now, we don't have a person designated to cast that vote. In the past, when it's come up, it's been defaulted to the chair. So we're just here today to request direction from the board as who would cast the vote on behalf of the district.
Dr.
Should we
Dennis?
just continue to default to the chair?
That's fine with me. We just wanted to bring it forward to make sure we had consensus.
Yeah.
And as a board, do you have a preference for Kathleen Fuchs or not? Is there anything I need to know and then we'll vote?
I recall the board approved the slate that was recommended by LAFCO, or not LAFCO, Aqua, excuse me.
Yeah, okay.
That's all I need. That's fine.
That's all I need. All right, super. That's it?
That's it.
All right, reports.
Okay. Part of one of the questions and what you guys all saw also, I think at CALA last month, was there was a presentation by the IT experts from Dell, which is not Dell, it's I think it's a subsidiary of Dell, but they do IT stuff. What we actually did was got that presentation from them. I brought that in internally here and gave it to our IT people and said, okay, this is your checklist. Come back to me and tell me where we stand. So I gave it to them on Monday, and they had the report back to me yesterday, which is basically, they're good. So we actually have our new IT update strategic plan. So I might not bring it back in December, depending if we have a second meeting or not. Might hold off until January. But it answers some of these other questions as far as IT, security, safety. So I took what they did, used that as kind of a checklist and a balance against what we do. And so I'll be bringing that back to the board. I'm just trying to figure out how to bring it to the board without doing it in open session to maybe disclose some things. So that's what I'm working on, how to do that without giving away the keys to the house. The other thing I'm going to do right now is I am now Dr. Frank Martin Ralph. 3 first names. We did borrow this. You saw this presentation, so that's why it says Cala. I believe I was requested, it was who has to bring it back. There's actually 95 slides. He only showed 25, I think. I took 10 of those out because I couldn't tell you what they are. So this is about the atmospheric river. Historically, we've always all heard that water follows the jet stream. And as Ed showed, it shows where the water moves north and south based upon the temperature, but we've always really thought it's been the jet stream. And to go to Director Martin's question on the technology, this is really only about 10 years old on the atmospheric river. So I'm going to hit these pretty simple and try to give you the basics again of them, just to I'm pointing the right way? Just go in advance, Diane, or if it's not working. Okay, bottom line is it's about a 10-year research right now. That's about as old as it is, and that's because of the ability to get planes up in the air, more monitoring equipment, and everything else. And what they're finding is that the airflow, which is way up there, the jet stream, is not necessarily where the moisture is. It's much lower, and you'll see another slide in a second that shows where the bulk of the water is actually in a moisture vapor, in a vapor trail that's much lower than it comes in. And it's driven by the warmth of the ocean and the high and low pressure. And like you said, this last 4 years, this ridiculously high pressure, it was 93 degrees in my house on Sunday. I mean, as long as I've been here, it's never been that hot on Halloween in my house. So it's incredible. But you can see what it does is that it actually does follow low on the ocean, and that it actually hugs and follows the contours of the land as it comes from west to the east. Next, please. This is a real interesting slide. This from back in 91. And then they've extrapolated later over the year, but out of those, I think there's 9 or 8 of them. That holds, I can't remember, I'm trying to read what it says, 95% of the water vapor that's out there from a storm standpoint or in the atmosphere is in those 8 areas. And so you can see where they're at. And one of the key slides that's later on, he didn't even get into in the presentation, he touched on it, was the transport of dust in the winds. Because the winds pushing the dust is what picks up the molecules and creates the vapor, which creates the raindrops. So it's a very interesting thing, but you can see there's 8 specific areas where that vapor tends to build as they go through the rain season. Next, please. This is actually from 2012, and that is the formation. Remember, Ed showed that horizontal curve that's right around the equator, how warm it was all the way around. Yet we had the piece up off the northern coast and then up off of Alaska, I believe. So this is showing how that vapor comes up from the equator lower south, and you can see that green stripe that just turns and heads right into Northern California back in the November through December 2012. So it's amazing they can actually track this now and show where the water vapor is. Next one, please. It's hard to see, but you've got a 90th percentile and less and 95 percentile and greater. It's the red and the green. And the difference in California, if you look over to the far right, is the water, and you'll see some statistics next. The water in Southern California in general really comes in about 5 to 7 major events. It's not the amount that comes all the time, but you see that the red line that peaks, those are the instantaneous things that are the greater than 95 percentile. When they hit, that's when you get the bulk of the rain is in those events. It's not the common day, it's the 5 to 7 to 9 events throughout the rain year. That's when we get the bulk of our water. That's why when Ed's saying when we get this extra water, it could really be a lot of extra water because it comes all at one time. So that's the scary part that we don't know how to deal with. Next, please. Go ahead and hit the next. Oh, go back, sorry. One more. No, go forward one more, sorry. Large storms. California, you can see it has the largest year-to-year variability in the country. If you look to the far east, very consistent. It rains all the time. If you look in the Midwest, down above Texas and that whole corridor, Again, it rains fairly consistently, and the far northwest rains pretty consistently. Then you look at California. It's just unique. There's no other way to put it, and that's just not the people that live here. That's just California. You've got the mountains all along the eastern side of the Sierras. You get further to the north, and it's just, then you look at the variability down in Southern California, and you can see the spikes when we get the wettest days. It's just amazing, and that's why it's so hard to plan for these things, is we don't know. Next, please. This was a very interesting one. I took the other slides out, but what it's shown is the Russian River up in Northern California. You've been up there on the tours. 7 out of the last 8 floods on the Russian River have been because of atmospheric river events. You may recall the other slides here, he was working with the water agency that's up there on how they would try to pull their reservoirs down at the beginning of the year so they have plenty of room. And what they would do is they might dump 2,000 acre-feet of water to make sure they had enough room, and then boom, one of these events would hit, but it would only replace 2,000 acre-feet. So they would end up with an off balance. They've been working with them based on this new study. I took those out, but it just goes to show that when these things come in and go to the north, 7 out of the last 8 floods up there have been because of these atmospheric rivers up north. So it's a big deal. But next slide, please. Keep going, please. One more? Okay, here we go, one more. Okay, so this goes to show that in the Pacific Northwest, again, they get a certain percentage associated with it, but when we get down here to Southern California, it's maybe it's only be 10% more, but when we get that much water at one time, when we get 9 to 11 inches of rain, that's a lot of water. The Northwest might get 30 and 40 inches, so it's a big difference on how they get the water throughout the year. The ground gets saturated, it can take it, or it's that right here. If we get a bad rain tomorrow, the ground's so hard, it's not going to do anything except run off. So it's a big difference. Next, please. This is the funniest one. If you look at that, the average atmospheric river is 7.5 times the average discharge of the Mississippi River on one given day. I mean, that's a lot of water. So that's the Sacramento River 7.5 times a day coming out. That's how much water is in that atmosphere. That's a pretty telling statistic.
And how many atmospheric rivers?
This is just the one that hits us. And when you see the next
When
slide.
you say, he says an average
When-
atmospheric
The
river.
amount of water that's in the one that would hit us on the west coast is 7.5 times the Mississippi River. That's how much water is up in the air.
Incredible.
Yeah, that's a lot of water. Next, please. This goes to answer that question right there. When you look at it, this is where the atmospheric rivers tend to hit the west coast. They don't go over the mountain range. They don't get up east of here, and you got that one small blob to the far east. That would be, was that Utah? No.
Colorado, I think. Isn't it?
Nevada, Utah? No, whichever one. Yeah, it's going to be Utah. I think it's Utah. Then New Mexico. Whatever. 4 corner states. So you can see where the impact is of the atmospheric rivers and how it hits. Next, please. Next, please. This is the interesting part. This came from working with the water agency to the north. What they can see with this monitoring now is you can see the color, how it changes from the intensity scale at the bottom, that they're looking at. They can judge 5 to 7 days ahead. So for this agency to the north, where they had storage, if they knew when it's coming, they can try to balance the reservoir by not letting out just enough to say, okay, let's fill it as much as we can, but let's not empty it before it gets here. So it actually is a good tool that they're looking at now. They can help balance their reservoir storage. Next, please. This is the band that was to the south. This is what's coming. This is the one Ed showed you earlier. This just goes to show you how the average temperature, I want to say it's 3.4 degrees warmer than normal along that whole band that's pushing the water to the north. Next, please. Click one more. Obviously, this stopped in September or October, the black band. The green one is the one that started last year. Remember, everybody was, oh yeah, El Nino's coming. Well, again, you got to remember, El Nino is a weather condition. It's not necessarily indicative of water. It's just a condition. The black is what they projected forward, and it actually has stayed up a little bit higher than the red line. It's where Ed was saying it's at 95%. So they're still holding there. Yeah, it is a true El Nino. It's here. It's not going to break down. Next, please. This one you already actually saw from Ed, just showing the increased precipitation. Next, please. This is the interesting one. You see the blue line, that's back when they did this, but there's 3 dates. There's the 1988, 95, and 1998, 93. 3 of the dates are above average of the rainfall, 1 is below. So it's not quite 50-50, so it's 25-75 that it can happen. But every time you hear NOAA talk about El Nino, they say 50% have been the wettest in the driest conditions, and 50% have been the driest in the wettest conditions. So it's just a crapshoot on where the jet stream or where that water actually hits the state. It's a good guess. Next. Center for Western. This goes to explain, Director Betty, when you first asked where it goes. So you can see the green to the far west is the weather pattern, that's the atmospheric river. Then you've got the gray, the southwest area, which is more of a monsoon. It comes in a different time of the year. We don't get that. That moisture goes around. It comes from a different way it forms. And then you've got the other 2 patterns to the north, the spring frost, the Great Plains. So it's totally different how each one of these things builds on the western United States. That's why it's so different for all of us. Next, please. Keep going, please. Keep going. That's it. The others, like I said, I couldn't remember, nor could I make heads or tails out of what he was trying to say, so I'll quit there.
And can you look at that picture and tell which way that atmospheric river is flowing?
Down the valley.
It's going from west to east, you
Yeah,
said that.
west to east would be my guess.
And where is it so green?
I don't know.
Where is that picture from?
That's not Southern California.
That's not here. That's
It's
not here.
Arkansas.
I would say way north.
It's Arkansas.
Yeah.
Director Martin, you had a question.
I
Comment.
think that was a superb job by General Manager of not being a doctor of meteorology.
I was winging that one.
I've had a lot of time on my hands of late, and I have been spending a lot of time trying to learn more about this on the internet, which is a wonderful tool when you have the time. And correct me if I'm not correct, you can compare it to a solar flare, the river, because it moves away from the equator, and it comes back to the equator, and it goes up and it goes down.
It goes up
So,
and down.
Yeah, you can compare, my mind just sees a solar flare, because I'm used to seeing that in my mind, and that's why you have a lot of the dry storms, you have the thunder, you have the lightning, you have no rain, there's no water in the
No
atmosphere.
water in the atmosphere.
And then you don't have to have that, and we have water in the atmosphere, but I think he said if you take a room this size and
Oh,
go
yeah,
up
you
through the
column all the way
atmosphere,
up.
there's a 1/4 inch of rain.
Is that
in
what it was?
Normally, a 1/4
Okay.
inch of rain in all that atmosphere.
Yeah.
But in a river, you can have 2 or 3 feet.
Yeah.
So it's just
Yeah,
amazing.
that's right. I forgot about that one. Yeah.
So the atmospheric river is really, and they'll be able to forecast that by looking at, using the tools they have on a day-to-day basis.
Like I said, there's another 75 slides that show the planes, the equipment, the balloons, the monitors, and I got lost.
Yeah,
Very
so
quickly.
NOAA should be able to know a lot better this year when those things are happening. As they happen, I don't know if they can predict it, because they don't know when when that river's gonna move, because it moves. Very interesting.
It is, yes.
You know, I've heard, then today with Ed, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, NOAA thought that this was going to get, at first I heard no snowpack, although they may be wet, lots of water, early, and because temperatures are high, not much snowpack. Then I heard a greater possibility of snowpack. And today, Ed was indicating probably not. Do we have a better idea of whether which the snowpack is the crux of the matter? We get all the damn rain
They're
we
still
want.
projecting 3 to 4 degrees hotter in Northern
Yeah.
California.
Uh-huh.
The difference between getting snow now in a cold time when it does rain, if there's snowpack, and it does rain and it's warmer, all it does is melt the snowpack.
Mm.
And then it takes the snowpack out with it. But they're still projecting higher than normal down here, average to the north, cooler temperatures here, warmer temperatures to the north.
Hmm. So,
We just won't know.
all right.
Anyone else? And I just had a question, and maybe if you've been, maybe you'll know this. You want money?
No, that's Mr. Hernandez.
Oh. So if the atmospheric rivers are influenced a lot by the dust, so then when we have these volcanoes that go off and things, or the giant dust storms, that is also?
I would assume it has some impact, but like I said, I started going through the slides and I got lost really quickly. Yeah.
It's amazing to predict anything. Well, thank you. You did do a good job.
Thank
And
you.
I like the solar flare idea.
And that's all I have.
Visualize it.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
That's
Thank
all I
you.
have, thank you.
All right, great. District Legal Counsel.
You know, I'm speechless after that. I have nothing to add.
Wow. Okay, well, San Diego County Water Authority is actually for November, we've moved our meeting to December, and so what we have coming up is a special, on finances, I believe it is, next week, and then I can report on that later, otherwise there's nothing particularly new. So that leads us to the Encino Wastewater Authority. Mr. Hernandez?
We purchased a grinder that's been around since 2009, a new one. We put in a policy for employees operating vehicles with drugs and alcohol. Not with
You
them.
can't have it or-
Can't do it, yeah, please. We've had something in there, but they have modified it so it's more clear. Aeration basin piping and diffuser replacement took place, and a tactical plan update. And I believe I mentioned last time about the audit and how thorough that was, so.
You're volunteering for it again next week.
Yeah, I sure will be. I'll be out that week, I'm almost positive. And then, however, one of the things that came up, and perhaps, Jeff, you can enlighten us a little bit further, SB 272, relative to public access to programs. They had brought it up that, I can't remember, Greg, if it was in the process of being looked at or had it been approved, in as much as that the public was trying to get access to programs within cities and agencies. Have anything to share
I
on that?
don't, you know, I don't, but I can,
Take a look at that.
yeah, take a look at it and report back.
All right? We're gonna have a capital campaign, capital committee meeting next week or so. That's it.
And Director Alta?
Yeah, the Policy and Finance Committee met yesterday, and we heard an update on a project that staff is working on. It's an electronic document management system, so they're trying to take all their paper documents over the years, all their as-built drawings, and put them in an electronic system that that's searchable and that better archive documents and access them. So that was a pretty interesting presentation. We also had an item on South Parcel, I guess the disposition or coming up with some way to find a lease arrangement on maybe a passive use until the Encino Wastewater Authority determines how to use that parcel ultimately. So that'll be moving forward to the board. And we got an update from the general manager on resource sharing with the San Alejo Joint Powers Authority and the Director of Engineering position that's currently advertised. That's it.
All right. That will lead us to the director's reports on travel, conferences, and seminars. Director Martin.
We had a DSAL seminar here on Monday, led by Chris, who did a great job, and so did James and Ed was part of it, did a great job. We actually had more people than we had employees, and more people than we had directors, so that was good news. I did have a chance myself to speak to one of them after, a concerned citizen from San Alejo, who immediately noticed as well that, hey, we're not getting any of that water, which is just a comment on, I know we find it necessary to use those slides. I don't think that they serve much purpose other than confuse people. They're nice, they're neat, they're 3D, but I think people look at that and go, oh, well, that means, especially when you go through the 4 months, the 4 seasons. You know, well, this season's this much, people are looking at it, non-engineering, not thinking about water and going, this is confusing, what water am I gonna get? But did make a good job of explaining the black box and all goes into a portfolio, and it's blended, and that was a lot better, I thought. But I still personally don't see the necessity for showing those charts. I think they're very confusing to certain people, and my concern is they don't understand it. And actually, to make that more palatable, I'd like to, the board, staff bring us back something to actually explain where we think the price of water is gonna be a year from now compared to what it is today. The actual price per gallon. I think I'd like to see us in informational tones get to more people through billing, through what a gallon of water costs, versus 20 gallons to fill up your car, 20 gallons of water is 20 cents or 15 cents, or whatever. I'd like to see, and bringing that up, we're still waiting for a presentation that's been long overdue from a company that we've spent some money with that's supposed to tell us how to talk to people. We still haven't heard from them. Last I heard was Chris a month ago say they didn't make it that night because they asked them not to because they wanted to change some things. And I'm starting to feel like a mushroom. And we all know what that means.
We
So,
do?
Yeah. Kept in the dark and get put
Yeah.
on top of me.
And getting moldy?
Getting stuff put on top of me.
Yeah.
It's like, there's a true story coming out about this. Someday it'll come out. But in the meantime, please take some of the fertilizer off of us and tell us when this report. Tonight's the perfect time. We don't have very much. Why didn't we have it tonight?
You'll be getting a presentation probably,
You think the cost of service ought to be done? January?
Oh, just talking about
December?
different things.
Oh, no, but
But the cost of service, probably December. yeah.
probably December, you'll be seeing the
January,
cost of
so
service study, December,
okay.
January. That would be a good time to elaborate on what you're talking about as far as what the cost of water is gonna be, because you're gonna be getting a whole new rate structure and options on how you wanna do it. With respect to the other one, they were supposed to be here. I pulled them off of that about 3 weeks ago because we've been working with the attorneys on the lawsuit for the presentation on the mediation. So I pulled them off on that. To me, that took a little greater priority. The downside of that is I found out yesterday the mediator moved the mediation from 2 weeks from now to February. So Chris is now back on it. That's why you didn't get it tonight.
So 8 weeks?
We're-
Huh?
8 weeks?
we're-
No, it was actually, they were wrapping it up to have it tonight,
They're
but like I said,
wrapping
I pulled them off. I took them off that.
And again, I thought this at the beginning was a 6-month process, and I believe it's over 12 months now.
We're getting
And
there.
this process has become ridiculously long.
Understood.
Thank you. And Director Hernandez?
I additionally attended the DSAL thing, and it feels much the same way as Director Martin relative to the slides, and what is said relative to the slides. It was mentioned, James did a fine job, excellent job, and he was suffering with a sore throat, so he powered through that. But the thing that caught my ear is that the D-cell is spreading out into these areas, and I went, holy Kimona, it sounds like it's cancer or a disease, and it's gonna be going in, and nobody else was getting, San Lejo doesn't get it. Well, they
Right.
do get it, but they get it through the county. And so, we need to check the discussion and the words that we're using, and I would agree, I don't know that the slides say much more than, a nice graphic to show. We're gonna get, the majority of our district is gonna get desal water from us, and the rest will be getting from the county. So, there's gotta be a better way to make that presentation. But it was, as well as we anticipated, to get attendance. I said maybe we need better food, or a giveaway prize or something, but the people there were very interested, nice questions, and more information was, as a matter of fact, the information, it took me 2 times to get there so I could explain it clearly. I have a friend who's continually carping on me about all the energy that the desal is gonna use, yada, yada. And then we've heard it now, I've heard it twice, and I was able to lay it right back in his face that this is carbon footprint neutral. Bam. And this and that, and the 3 things items with the solar and the generator and everything, and the purchase of credits, and that paused them for a minute.
And 66 acres of
Yeah.
habitat.
Yeah, so it was a great presentation, so,
Good presentation.
yeah.
Good presentation.
I'm sorry that I was just saying, I'm sorry that I missed it, but I feel like this is the sort of presentation that will become more publicly responded to once it's out there and people are starting to ask all those questions. So I think the comments are good in the sense of what do we want to say and how do we need to tell them. But I think we'll have the need for this again later. To those who suddenly realize, oh, we do have desal, and why don't I have desal, and does my water taste different, and doesn't it, and all those questions, so get ready. And I'm so sorry I cut you off, Director
And
Sinella.
I also was there, so I won't go on too much about it, but I will just say just a different opinion. I like the slides. I think we can do, maybe a little bit kind of more of a positive, this is a really exciting time for us, and I think the message, like when I have my opening remarks with the group, I think overwhelmingly, the region thinks the East Isle is a great thing. It's a nice diversification of our water supply. It's gonna give us, a reliable water supply that's 8 miles away. I just think we can maybe, we just need to make sure that we reiterate how positive this is, because I think the community in the region already thinks it is, and we should, continue to build up that momentum. But the presentation was great, and staff did a great job on that. And the nice thing about having the workshops even beforehand is that at least we're giving the public the opportunity to come, and if they do have any concerns or they have any questions, they can air those out, and we can try to address those and alleviate any concerns they have beforehand. So I think it's a good process, even if only, I think a couple dozen people showed up to this last one. If you don't mind, I also, at the last meeting, you may recall, was asked to kind of give an end-of-the-year report on the San Diego North EDC. Is that something you would like to do now, or
Could
would
we
you want
do
to
that
wait?
during the director's comment? Would that be all right with
Okay.
you? Or that-
We'll
I
be there in a
don't
second.
Sure.
You'll be there in a second, because the only thing
If I
is the
might,
other business.
to address Director Hernandez's point, SB 272 did pass and been chaptered and amends the Public Records Act, and basically it's digitizing and organizing, and it won't be effective until July 1st, but the district for a number of years has basically been putting everything on digital format, so that we're well prepared to organize this, to have this available, so.
Okay.
Actually, I'm gonna change my mind. I wanna put that back under, because it's conferences and seminars. So you're on, Michael.
Okay. So I was gonna do a long report, but I figured, I think all the board members except President Evans has gone to almost all of the meetings, so some of this is gonna be.
I will be at the next one.
Okay, thank you. So this will be a little bit redundant, but then also a lot of the information as it pertains to San Diego North EDC, they do have a website, so you can get a lot of information, kind of the background of what their mission is and purpose is. So I'm not gonna spend too much time on that, but some of the specific questions that I heard at the last meeting that I wanted to bring up was, how much have we spent on it? Who are the other investors? What's talked about at the meetings? What's presented at the meetings? What are some of the things that the organization does? How does it relate to water? How many people get the newsletter? So I answered all those questions, so I'm prepared to talk about those if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Do you also have it in a written form?
I bought only one copy. You
Oh.
can have it after I'm done.
All right.
Just my little cheat sheet.
Okay.
So, as you know, at the end of last year, I think it was, at the beginning of this year, we started getting more involved with the organization. There have been a total expenditures year to date of 18.5 thousand. And that sounds like a large number on the surface, but then just by comparison, I had reached out to GM Lamb and just said, get a couple other examples. With CAWA, we're just a little bit less than that, and with CSDA, we're more than half of what we spend on CSDA. So it's kind of in line with some of the other organizations that we participate with. Some of the other investors, there's dozens of them. I'm not going to go through all of them because a lot of them are private companies and aren't not really comparable to us, but there's some that I think are, like California State University San Marcos, the Carlsbad Chamber of Commerce, the City of Poway, the City of Vista, the City of Oceanside. Let's see what else we got here. Kaiser Permanente, Miracosta College, North County Health Services, Olivia Haynes Municipal Water District, the Oceanside Chamber, Palomar Health, Poseidon Resources Corporation, the DeSalle folks, the San Diego County Water Authority, SDG&E, Time Warner, Vista Chamber of Commerce, Waste Management, the waste folks. So, and there's probably 2 or 3 more dozen, the biocides of the world and the big corporations that are here in North County. But there's a number that are similar to us, including a few other different water agencies. So that question was asked, and I wanted to let you guys know what that was. In general, there's representation at the monthly meetings from just about every business sector. It's solely laser focused on North County, which I think is a really nice thing, because we're hearing from businesses that are either immediately within our district boundaries or our surrounding area. Some of those examples include biotech companies, agricultural presentations. We received a presentation from the Farm Bureau. Camp Pendleton has given us a presentation, and oddly enough, I wasn't expecting it from the military, but they focused a lot on water. We hear from various different tourism industry, Legoland, hotels, restaurants, stuff like that, retail industry, healthcare, education. Cal State San Marcos has been up there most recently. Technology companies, development firms that are developing communities and neighborhoods in the area. Nonprofit organizations have come before us, and then various different government agencies or government-like agencies, such as the Port of San Diego and what was the Highway 101?
Hobbs Highway?
Yeah. So various different types of either outright government agencies or similar government-like agencies. And then in addition to those regular monthly meetings, they had in 2015 4 kind of more larger events that were attended between 300 to 500 people. One of those you all are very familiar with because you attended it, was the North County Water Forum in Vista, which I thought was a hugely successful event. They also had a healthcare summit at the beginning of the year. I know some of us went to it, but they're at the Sheridan next to Legoland. They had kind of a local economic overview presentation. I think Wells Fargo was one of the main presenters there. And then later on this month, they're going to have an innovation and technology summit or forum as well. That's going to be in Escondido.
Is that the one on the 13th?
That's correct. They do have a weekly newsletter that goes out to nearly 1,000 individuals in North County. We've been featured in that on more than one occasion, among other water agencies here locally. And that's kind of the overview and some of the questions that were asked at the last meeting. And I know where this is all kind of going is, how do we quantify this? Are we getting the bang for our buck? Is there benefits to both our agency and our customers? And it's hard to quantify, to be honest. Just as any of the learning and development activities that we do, you can't pinpoint that, oh yeah, we got this or we got that. But I think in general, and I'll ask the other board members about how they feel too, but in my opinion, I think that it definitely is worthwhile, and I learned something every single time to go. The second piece of it is, I see this, speaking just for myself, as just another arm in our public outreach initiative that's been a huge priority for this board ever since I've been on it. And this is just one more opportunity. And what I really like about this organization is that it's so laser focused on North County. A lot of the different organizations that we go to are much more broader. They may be California-wide, nationwide, or even San Diego County region-wide. This is focused on North County, so we're hearing from, like I said earlier, the businesses, the developers, the folks that are using water here in our most immediate, either within our district or our next door neighbors. So, and some of those industries like biotech, water is it's their number one ingredient in most of the drugs that they're manufacturing. So it's so crucial to them, and it's just another way for us on a monthly basis to get in front of them and get in front of the community and participate in that outreach effort that we've been so focused on lately. So with that, that's all I had to present. If there's any specific questions, I'd certainly like to ask. The only thing I'd also say is that because we didn't agendize this, so we are coming to the end of the year, and we may, that's something the board can consider for next year if we want to continue doing this or not continue doing this. But if that's not what this discussion is all about today.
No, it wasn't. I want to thank you for the information. If I can borrow your cheat sheet from you.
Sure.
And that would be great. And I don't think this is the time to get into a debate and a discussion. I appreciate the report, and I do think that this will become a topic that will come up in the next year on what are we going to support, how are we going to be spending the money on which organizations and what support. So I hope you understand it was not, I just wanted the information. And I, like again, I apologize not then, but I have the next two meetings, I'm not, on those Thursdays, I'm finally not at something. So I will be there, but thank you very much, and I'm sure we'll have this up again. That would be my full expectation.
Yep.
Okay, so now we can move on to other business, which is really just the Council of Water Utilities on November 17th. And then you'll let Diane know if you're going, and I know what the subject is, but it's my past.
It is stormwater outreach in
Oh,
schools.
stormwater.
And get in line before Tom.
Okay. Okay, excellent. So that then leads us to, make sure you want to add a note or something. Director's comments, so, and or future agenda items. And Director Martin.
I would like to suggest, I don't think an agenda item, but maybe a workshop. Maybe we should agendize it to have the workshop, I don't know. On our billing process, how we bill, what it shows on the bill, how uneasy it is for people to understand what they're paying for, and make it more simplicity with following the rules of the law as to what you have to do. But make the bills more people-friendly, user-friendly. I think, how much per gallon, how much for a room that's 10 by 10. I mean, there has to be guidelines there. I mean, it's great that we're putting the red ink on the outside of the envelopes. What do we call that?
Sniping. Sniping.
Yeah, great that we're sniping, but we're still not telling people the facts that they can understand. And as I brought up the other night, unit is not a unit, is not a unit, depending on where you live, that's all different. So to say use 14 units means absolutely nothing to the common person. You could tell them anything. No, you're using 14 units. They go, well, what does that mean? I don't know. Well, if we put it into the bill where it makes it more understandable, and take away this blanket of secrecy as to how this formulates and becomes your bill, separate sewer, separate the hookup charge, the delivery charge, and the commodity charge, and make it simple to read and understand. I'd love for us to discuss it if we all bring someone's bill in or our own bill in and look at it and see how can we make this simpler.
I think that's an interesting thought as a presentation, but I don't think it's, at this point, we need to get into the details. If we want to see what it is and then talk about it, but I don't know anyway if that's the minutia. It's policy setting, not specifics, but.
And I don't know exactly how we do it, but I do agree with Director Martin. We were talking about this at the DSAL event on Monday. But I think we can do a better job as to communicate what our customers are paying for and how we calculate it. We know that the average customer is using 14 units, and most folks don't really relate to units, but we know that 14 units is a little over 10,000 gallons. And that bill for that average customer is $80 to $90. Well, if you divide 10,000 gallons by $90, and you explain to them it's less than 1 penny per gallon that they're using, I think they have a better understanding that they're getting good value, if you will. Whereas they may not quite understand that if we start using words like cost of service or units and how we define that as 42 gallons or something, 762? Yeah. So I don't know how we get to it. I don't know if it's a workshop. I don't know, but maybe, I don't know what other water districts are doing up and down the state, but I'm definitely interested in, at least exploring it as well.
Director Hernandez.
This is very interesting and coincidental. I came in the office the other day to drop off a travel item worksheet that I had at the bottom of the car, and being polite, waiting my turn in line, there was a gentleman there that was there for at least 10 minutes, having the bill explained to him, because he was an out-of-towner. He gets his bill from his house out of town, but he was in town and couldn't believe that was the same amount of water every month than you had been in months. And the staff was giving them the direct answers, correct answers. But I could just see the old guy, the more they talked, the more he just was not getting it. And so I think the opportunity to expand on this to not so far as cartoons, but at least make it a little easier for people to read the bill and maybe help them along the way in understanding just some of the things that, what's a gallon of water, how big that is, how big
I
is an
think
acre?
So then,
Would-
would I suggest that we agendize this?
Yes.
A future agenda item?
Why don't I just at least, I gotta tell you, we have gone through 5 boards, 10 boards. We've gone through 5 bills, 10 bills, because this comes up every couple of years. What I would do then is I'll bring it to you, we'll have customer service or John as the person in charge of them, explain each item on the bill. These are all electronically done, these are all programmed, these are all sent out. So just keep in mind, when you do this, this isn't, we just changed the printing on a hard copy that we sent to the guy in the corner. This is computer programming, this is everything that goes with it. And we have gone the gambit, from cartoons to too much information. So you got 2 pages, 2 sides. So what I'll do is I'll have them come back. We're gonna be moving the board meeting in December. The one on the 18th is going to be audit and the redistribution of the board, however you guys choose to do that, plus one other item. Plus then you got the CSU thing after that. I don't know if this is a workshop item because it's just gonna be a presentation. So you tell me when you want me to bring it back. I can add to either of those 2 agendas, or we can wait till January.
Well, I think it can wait till January, personally, and I think a presentation is the first place, and then after that, we've gone through, if there's more we want to do it, so I think that's the point at which we understand
Okay.
what we take on board to do the workshop. I understand it's very difficult for people to understand their bills, and you're right, Jim, people come up all the time and they just don't get it. But even explaining units and the value of a gallon of water, to me, people say, oh, it's 1 cent a gallon, but why am I paying $90? And they don't really care if the unit's 1,000 gallons or the unit's 200 gallons, or that's not where it's at. And I think what we need to do is look at the bill, talk about what we've experienced with other people, and then see if we need to go forward. So I think January would be a great time.
If I could just add, 'cause I want to answer your question, because it's a great question, and the reason why that they don't understand their bill is $90, because they don't understand that they use 10,000 gallons of water. They think they used 14 units, and they don't know what a unit is.
No,
But if
I
you explain to them that
understand
you
what-
used 10,000 gallons of water this month, even at a penny a gallon, it still adds up to $100.
I understand that, and I
We'll bring
know,
it back.
but
It
this
is, I mean,
isn't
it's
a
simple
debate,
mathematics,
it's really.
right? But
it
why
doesn't-
are we trying to make this so complicated?
We'll bring it back.
It does say, so we're good there. I think that we've got the direction, I don't think
Yeah.
we need to spend any more time on that. So are there any other comments or future
I
agenda
have
items?
my hand raised.
Oh, well, I'm so sorry I didn't see it.
You
But-
saw it, you chose to diss it. That's okay, forget it.
I have a question.
Is it on the same subject?
No?
Thank you.
Could you, I had one of my ratepayer friends come to me and say, hey, I live in one of the mobile home parks, and my bill keeps going up on water. And I, quite frankly, was a little bit surprised, because if I remember our conversations, isn't there a master meter for most of our mobile home parks?
Mhm.
And then, does the mobile home park owners have the ability to adjust water rates within the park?
Mhm.
They do?
The PUC governs internal. So what's happened in the past, I gotta go back in time, because there were 2 of the, who developed, behind the college? Who are the brothers?
Baldwin.
Baldwin, there's another set of Baldwin brothers that, back in that era, back in the late 80s, early 90s, they bought a couple of the mobile home parks around here. And there was a PUC decision that came down that allowed the owners of a mobile home park, and Tom actually spoke to the lady from the mortuary, no, you referred her to me?
Yeah,
We had this conversation with her because her bill kept going up, yet we weren't raising our rates.
Marie Purdy.
Thank you. So what happens is they're allowed by the PUC to charge for for the reading and the replacement of the internal metering system. So what we found in the past is, the way it says is that they're allowed to charge the same that we would charge if we were providing the service to them. The way that's been construed is that if we would provide a single-family meter at $18 a unit for ready-to-serve charge, they are allowed to charge that $18 a unit for ready-to-serve, even though we only charge X for the big meter. So what I would do is have your friend call Tom, and then we can walk them through it. But that's what we found historically, is that they're charging more for the internal reading and control of the meters to them for their water. They're not charging any more than what we can charge for the
Right.
water, but they're charging more for managing it.
I see.
Yeah,
I see.
I'd have them get hold of Tom.
Okay.
Are there any other items or comments? I have one, actually I have two. First, next meeting, we will be talking about the reorganization, and I hope you'll take the time to read the policy on that procedure. And secondly, I don't believe that, I believe the chair does have the ability to decide a conversation is finished, and we've made a point. I think staff did understand where we were going with this. Director Martin, I was not meant as a diss to you personally. I hope you don't take it that way. But I felt like to move things forward, it was all right to say, I think we have consensus, and it's okay to move on. I think that's part of what a chair has the responsibility to do, and not just keep it going. So I apologize to you if you took it as personal diss. It was not meant that way. I'm just trying to move it forward. And unless there's any comments, we're adjourned.
Oh, sure.